Hey everyone, this is Paul here from the Magdalene Centre. Today I'm doing the astrology report for the week commencing the 28th of March, highlighting some key transits and changes this week and outlining what these themes mean for us and how we can best make use of the energies. Now, before I go to the actual aspects themselves, I just want to clarify, as I always do, the astrology itself doesn't control us in any way. It's a set of influences like the weather. If we know what is going on, we can then adapt our course of action, we can adapt the way we respond to things so that we work with the energies of the time rather than trying to fight against it. So, in terms of the aspects this week, I'll start off with the moon as usual. So, we'll start off with the moon in Leo, so this will be a time where we may still be feeling that need for asserting or being our authentic selves, of testing or trying out or experimenting with our self-expression, engaging with our creativity and encouraging other people to do the same thing. But on the same day, the moon will enter Virgo, and this will be a time where we will be looking at bringing order and dealing with daily tasks in our lives. So looking at the routines that we have and working on them, assessing our physical and mental health and what we need to do in order to boost these areas. Then on Friday, the moon enters Libra, so this will be a time where we may feel the need to connect with other people, to spend time either in one-to-one sessions or just socialising in general. But also a time of desiring building harmony with one another and building bridges with other people. Then on Sunday, the moon will enter Scorpio, and this will be a time for us to go within us and understand our deeper motivations for doing things, but also see what old beliefs or old feelings come to the surface that we need to release because they're no longer valid or no longer who we are, and they need to be let go of. Now, in terms of, there's quite a few other aspects to go through this week. The first one that takes place is an exact square between the Sun in Aries versus Saturn in Capricorn. So this square will be strongest at this point, but it's been building up to this point, and it's obviously weighing off again over the next week. But the square between Sun and Saturn on the 29th, this is a time where we may feel it as out in external resistance if we don't value discipline, if we don't value order, don't value structure, and we're just trying to pursue our own goals or pursue our own objectives with no thought for others, then we end up creating internally a conflict between these two sides, which then gets projected externally, and we feel that resistance from outsiders. So whenever there's a square going on, it's important that we look within us to see where are we projecting one side of the square out. So for some of us, if we're engaged more comfortably with Saturn, so we particularly like structure, discipline, we may reject the Sun and Aries side, which is the impulsive side. But conversely, if we're more comfortable with that assertiveness, we may chafe against authority. The important thing to remember is that Saturn serves to give us that discipline, to help us learn to be patient and to take things step by step and make sure that all of the weakest links in anything are dealt with, that we identify where our weak points are and we work on them to become stronger. So during this time, it's important that we utilise the discipline of Saturn so that whatever goals or new beginnings we're looking to set within our lives, we're doing them in a constructive and stable step-by-step way. So we're not rushing into things without thinking. We're taking our time, we're figuring out what is the wisest course of action, and we're making sure that whatever we're doing it with integrity. So we're being true to who we are, but we also respect the needs of other people, and we're not trying to control others. Now the next aspect along on the 30th is Pallas Athena is changing signs. She's been in Taurus for several weeks now, but now she's moving into Gemini. Now, for the past few weeks, since Juno moved out of Aquarius, we haven't had anything in air apart from the brief 2.5 transits of the moon through air signs. So we've not had a stable connection with the air element. And air brings wisdom, it brings knowledge, it brings clarity of thought, and it brings or highlights the mental realm. Now with Pallas Athena here, she's one of the wisdom goddesses, and she deals with wisdom, she deals with things like justice, and she deals with healing and art. Now this is a time in Gemini where we're looking at wisdom of knowledge, of understanding the power that we wield when we have knowledge about something, and also the necessity to wield that power wisely, so we don't, it needs to be balanced out with understanding. So it's all very well and good knowing facts, but we also need to understand the context of it, to understand different perspectives of the same thing, and to achieve a more objective way of viewing things. Gemini is also deals with the senses, so it's taking on board all the information coming through our senses, especially what we see and hear, and it's also learning the necessity of listening to one another, to listen to wisdom and not just dismiss it out of hand. And we may find that talking to one another brings about healing. So obviously, I was saying just air dirty laundry everywhere, but if there are people that we gel with well and we feel comfortable sharing ideas or sharing stories, this may well provide an outlet for healing through talking things out and getting other perspectives on the same issue. The next day, along the 31st, we have a full moon in Libra. I'll do a separate video on this, so I won't go into too much detail here. But this particular full moon is about balancing needs of the self and the needs of the other. So the Sun in Aries is about self-assertion, of self-identity, and developing that autonomy, that need for independence and need to feel free. Whereas Libra reminds us that we're also interconnected with everything, and it's important that we respect our connections, that we work on our connections with other people, and we make sure that we remember to honour both sides. So we stay true to who we are, we also respect and acknowledge the needs of the other person, and we make sure that their needs are also met. So it's learning to balance the needs of the self versus the needs of the other, and to strive to understand other people through listening, through connecting with one another, and through seeking a balance between the two sides, so both people are honoured, both people have their needs heard. There's, on the same day, Venus will be moving into Taurus. She's been in Aries since the 7th, and this has been a time where I may feel like I've been needing that sense of independence, that need to have our own self-identity recognised and respected, and may also be a time of value independence and seek to make sure that both parties have that independence honoured, so that ideally both people want to be one another, but they maintain their independent nature, so both sides get to do what they want to do, but also work well together. But now with Venus moving into Taurus, this is a time of looking at our own values, of looking at what it is that we want to, what do we value? Do we value the material? Are our values spiritual? What is it? Or what value system do we work by? And what is our relationship to physical things? Now ideally, we would learn to recognise that nothing in the world is something we can truly possess. We can serve as a steward for it, and we can serve like the gardener that tends to the garden and make sure that everything's tended to, the plants are watered, the crops are nurtured. But we also need to understand that we don't possess anything, and the more we relinquish this need to possess things, and the more we can step back and see things as they are, the more we appreciate the wholeness of everything, the beauty of things as they are, and the less we feel like we need to possess things. So we learn to develop that sense of detachment, not in a sense of uncaring, but we appreciate and enjoy the fruits of the spirit whilst claiming our ownership of them. So we enjoy life, we enjoy the sensual pleasures, we value stability, we value nurturing of one another, we also recognise that we don't own anyone, we don't own anything, or we don't possess anything. Our responsibility is to nurture one another, to value one another and respect one another, and to also make sure that we value and nurture ourselves. We have that solid sense of self-worth, that we know that we're valuable, and we have that love of ourselves, but we also learn to create stability and nurturing for others, so we value that our interconnectedness as well, and we don't seek to possess other people, we seek to nurture them and give them a stable foundation as well. But obviously we need to make sure we give this to ourselves first in order for that to happen. Now, key period is going to be Monday itself, so we have Vesta is moving out of Sagittarius and into Capricorn. Vesta is another one of the goddess asteroids, but she deals with devotion and the need to honour the self, to maintain our personal integrity and nurture the flame of our own personal spirit. And this is done through things like spiritual devotion, of learning to be whole within ourselves. This doesn't mean that we don't seek connection with other people. We recognise that we don't need another person to complete us. We are whole within ourselves, and also highlights the necessity of spiritual devotion and the honouring of the self. Now, she's been in Sagittarius for a little while and has been dealing with that need to devotion to expansiveness, to the need for adventure, but now she's moving to Capricorn. It's devotion to things like discipline, of creating order and structure in our lives, and to work hard in order to earn, or in order to achieve our goals, and in order for us to reap what we sow. So it's a time of knuckling down and devoting our tasks to whatever goal, of developing a core sense of, or needs for self-discipline, of drive, of resilience, and need for patience as well, and the recognition that any goal that's worthy or worthwhile trying to achieve will take time, it will take effort, it will take devotion and self-discipline, but through cultivating these qualities we can become much stronger. Now, at the same time, we have exact conjunction with Mars and Saturn, so this may feel similar to the square between the Sun and Saturn, because Mars rules Aquarius, or rules Aries, sorry, but now it's going through Capricorn. Part of the challenge that we're all facing is the need to address the desires and actions that we take, and understand the need to bring them, to convert desire into devotion, to bring discipline and order to our actions, and to, through discipline and spiritual devotion and spiritual discipline, we need to recognise which desires undermine our forward movement, undermine our growth, and pull us off track from what we want to achieve in our lives. And it's a time for purifying the desires through that recognition of the higher order that underpins everything, because Capricorn is higher order. It's the universal laws and applying them. Sagittarius teaches us universal laws, but Capricorn tests our understanding and tests our willingness to apply them and to live our lives by them. So this is a point where we need to bring our desires and actions under control, to bring them under a higher guidance, to create that sense of devotion and develop personal integrity, so that our actions mirror who we are. They devoted purely to our goals, and they're not willy-nilly, they're not impulsive, and they're not engaging in things which aren't going to help us achieve our goals. And so yeah, there's a lot going on from that. And we also have an exact trine between the Sun in Aries and the North Node in Leo. So whilst the Sun in Aries is highlighting the time of year where it's taking action, it's making new things happen, is choosing, if we've already chosen goals, committing to the action necessary to make it happen. It's the sowing of seeds and making sure that we remember to keep taking action, that whatever fears and insecurities come up, we push through them. We don't allow those fears and insecurities to stop us in our track. We keep pushing with our goals despite whatever fear and insecurities that may arise, because it's through taking action that we set the ball rolling. If we don't take that action, nothing's going to happen. Now, another aspect that I've forgotten to mention so far is Sun's conjunct Mercury. This marks the midpoint of the Mercury retrograde, as a time where a seed is planted in the unconscious, which will gradually mature over time. But because Mercury's retrograde, this isn't necessarily a period of taking a lot of action. We do still need to take action, of course, but we need to make sure that they're wise actions, that the actions that we're taking are based on pursuing a goal that is right for us. So it requires that we understand who we are. This may be, with Aries, this may also be a time where we observe our interaction with the people and see where do we either fail to assert ourselves because we don't like conflict, or where do we try to assert our own point of view too forcefully without listening to the perspective of the other person, because we all have our own way of seeing things and no one person has all the right way of seeing things. We all have our own personal biases. Rarely are we ever truly aware of these, but it's through honest conversation and being prepared to listen to what other people are saying that we can expand our perceptions beyond their current limits and see things more clearly. So with this conjunction, it's a time where seeds for a new way of seeing things or a new way of asserting ourselves starts to germinate, but this isn't a time for taking rash action or anything like that, though there may be an impulse to try that. This is more of a time of remembering to take things slowly, to observe what lessons we're learning through this retrograde about how we assert ourselves, but also whether the goals we've set are actually right for us and honour who we are. But this is the midpoint of the retrograde, and it's time to see what new beginnings are starting to emerge from our unconscious and to integrate these new beginnings into our life. Now, going back to what I was saying before, we have the Sun trine the North Node. So the North Node in Leo reminds us to let our hair down from time to time, to remember to have fun, to engage in play, and to embrace that creative side of ourselves, the side that may dream big and may have big plans, and to have the courage to take the action to make them happen. So the Sun's trine to the North Node is a time where we may have that easy flowing energy and find it easier to pursue those goals and to keep going and pushing for what we want to achieve. So it's a time where this North Node Sun trine can serve as a major release of some of the other energy that come from all the squares in Capricorn. It gives the Sun's outlet a release, and the North Node being in Leo is in the sign the Sun rules, so there's a natural harmony between the two. But the thing with trines is, because they're so free flowing, we can also fail to notice the opportunity and let it drift by. So with this trine, it builds up to it over 1 or 2 days beforehand and dies off again after, because aspects to the North Node are generally very tight. But this is an opportunity for us to let our hair down, to play about, to not take ourselves too seriously. It's important that we obviously pursue goals that are meaningful for us, but it's also important that we don't forget to have fun in life. Not everything in life is about work, of achieving social status. We also need to play. We also need to not take ourselves too seriously and to allow that childlike quality to shine within us and connect, which helps to connect us with the people. It's through that curiosity, through that desire for play, through those warm emotions like generosity, beneficence, loyalty and emotional warmth, that we connect with one another. We ignite that spark within one another and can help to boost that flame to turn the sparks into the fire of creativity, so it warms us, it nurtures us, and that warmth spreads outwards from our being, and other people benefit just by being in our presence. But it only happens if we work on ourselves. It's not something that astrology is not going to magically make things happen for us. We have to do the work ourselves. Astrology simply gives us guidelines, or gives us or shows us what is a wise course of action to take and what possible pitfalls are, but it doesn't control us in any way. And I always say this, but we all have to take personal responsibility for our own lives, and we also need to remember to lighten up, to not take ourselves too seriously. Unfortunately, play is something that tends to get a bit of a dim view from a lot of people, but it's actually necessary for us to be our best selves. It's through play that we get to try new ideas out in an arena where there's no risks involved, but through playing with ideas, through messing about, we also build our problem solving abilities through coming up with creative solutions in an environment where there's no risks, there's no fear of failure or anything like that, because we're just playing about with things. So the trine to the North Node is a reminder that during this time where we may feel a strong clash between the need to assert ourselves and the need to maintain order and structure in our lives and respect the needs of society around us, the North Node in Leo reminds us to play, to not take ourselves too seriously, to enjoy the time we spend with one another, and to nurture those bonds with one another, and just be more playful in life. So there's a lot to take on board there, but I hope it's a useful gauge for the week. So a lot of tests for discipline for one involved, and there's a lot there we need to learn to understand our own actions and desires, and we need to understand how we assert ourselves and understand who we are by delving into the I am and pushing to the deeper levels to figure out who we really are, rather than the surface level that we often engage in. And part of it is also releasing ourselves from labels, to learn not to define ourselves by what we're doing or who we think we are, and instead allow the process of self-exploration unfold naturally, rather than trying to rush to figure out the right label for ourselves. We're not, as human beings, we're not supposed to be boxed in by labels. So it's important that we remember to release these labels, release these self-definitions that often limit us and prevent us from taking actions, and to expand our horizons, expand our perceptions, and realise that there's so much that we can do, and even more so when we work together with like-minded individuals, where we have people who vibe with us, who have a similar mindset. It's important that we build these relationships, that we work together to create new ways of doing things, because if we just focus purely on our own desires and our own actions to the neglect of others, then we also undermine how successful we can be in the long run, because for the biggest and most ambitious projects to manifest successfully, they almost inevitably require the help of other people. So it's important that we remember to, yes, assert ourselves and be true to who we are, but we also respect the people around us, we work with them, and we build bonds of love with one another in order for us to keep remaining motivated and dedicated to a common goal. So there's a lot to take on board, but I hope this week brings you many blessings, a lot of important changes and greater self-understanding, and may it also be a week where we remember to have fun and not take ourselves too seriously. So take care, be blessed.